Moha! Welcome to part 2 of PRLostGalaxy2014's top 20 best and worst Power Rangers villains list. Well, Halloween may be over, but the legacy of evil still lives on within Power Rangers' legacy. As for a late Halloween treat for all of those, I'm going to, after I've already did my list of what are my top 20 greatest, here are the top 20 worst of Power Ranger villains. And the worst of evil Power Rangers has ever offered. One of the most despised villains. One of the villains of Power Rangers that really suck so bad that they stink so much, and I really do not like the way how they are. I really don't. I don't at all. So let's go ahead and see who are my top 20 worst, or in some terms, despised villains of all of Power Rangers. At number 20 of worst villains of Power Rangers, I'm going to say Furious from Operation Overdrive. And actually, in fact, all of the villain factions of Operation Overdrive. So it's going to count as the big 20 of worst. Because Operation Overdrive's villains, every single one of them are not as impressive. When you look at them, they're just not that great. No offense, and no shit in regardless, because none of the villains in Operation Overdrive were that impressive. And I'm just saying, they're just not that impressive. Furious was not, Lothor wasn't, Camdor and Miratrix definitely ain't, because none of them just don't appeal me. I really think that the villains in Overdrive do deserve to be in the deep bottom list because none of their villains were that appealing to me. In fact, why the hell are they even all that impressive? They're not impressive. They fucking suck. Especially the American-produced villain of the series, which is Furious and Miratrix. But Camdor, Moltar, and the Fearcats are from the Bokinger Sentai that Operation Overdrive is based on. But Furious deserves to be on this list because, well, I don't like him. He fucking sucks. And I really did not like his character. I thought that for an American-produced villain like him, I've always felt that Furious was the blandest of all of the villains of Power Rangers, American-made or Sentai-created, that I've ever seen. What was his purpose exactly? I mean, other than getting the Corona Aurora like the rest of the other villain factions from the series do, but why do we have to deal with Furious' side of the story of getting the Corona Aurora? His premise didn't really suit anything, really. I really don't care about Furious, or Moltar, Camdor, Miratrix, the Fearcats, or so. So what the hell? Number 19 is Thrax, also from Power Rangers Operation Overdrive. And why he sucks as a villain and why he's on my list of the top 20 worst Power Ranger villains is because Thrax is just a terrible throwaway of what made Rita and Lord Zed great villains. Mainly with mostly a lot of parts of Lord Zed to his character. But as the son of Rita and Zed, that is really, really low. And for the 15th anniversary of Power Rangers with Once a Ranger and throwing this guy in, this guy was nowhere in the world all that freaking impressive. I don't even like that cliche growly voice that it sounds like something you hear on a cartoon voice. And that just really, really pisses me off when I hear Thrax and his growly cliche voice. It's dumb, stupid, repetitive, tedious, and whatever else I can say about him because it's not really worth it. I'm sorry. It's just not worth it. No offense. Number 18, Koragg from Power Rangers Mystic Force. Sorry I had to put Koragg on my list of worst, but the reason why I personally had to put Koragg at number 18 on my list of worst villains in Power Rangers is because Koragg, to me, when I was watching Mystic Force, I like his character and his design, but I just don't like his betrayal. And the way how he rips off the whole honorary and chivalry of worshipping those that are evil of the underworld. And when I think of Koragg, he's just a terrible knockoff to Villamax and Ecliptor when I think of him. And it just seems to me, as much as half bland as Mystic Force is, Koragg is like pretty, I mean, I again, as much as I like his costume and design and all, I just don't like his performance. his performance for the villains side of Mystic Force is what brings Mystic Force down to a level when seeing him like whatever, you know, just wondering why is he even there? I mean, what sole purpose is he for to serve those that are evil and have this whole honor and chivalry and such? But although I did like the plot point of him stealing Udana's White Ranger powers, but his overall motive within Mystic Force was just blah to me, you know. And especially his fighting prowess. Well, his fighting prowess just feels too reminiscent to Ecliptor and Villamax's in a way. I just can't seem to put my finger on it when I listen to him. Every time when I just think about it, in a way. Nothing else more about him. Number 17 for worst villains in Power Rangers. I'm gonna go with Decker from Power Rangers Samurai and Super Samurai, and why he sucks as a villain, in my opinion. Knowing me and my hatred toward Power Rangers Samurai, as much as I don't like RPM, Operation Overdrive, and a few other seasons, Samurai, you know, Decker, he is definitely one of my most hated villains of all of Samurai, and within the Power Rangers. I did not like his motive. I did not like his obsession of trying to destroy the Red Ranger with his Urumasa sword. Decker is so obsessed with the Red Ranger. And in fact, this is one of the many reasons why I hate Power Ranger Samurai. It was way too focused on Jaden than the rest of the Samurai Rangers. Just like Shinkenger, it was too focused on Takeru than the rest of the Shinkengers. No offense, but Decker, my goodness, I mean, his character was just so fucking derivative. I just did not like him. I did not like him at all. He fucking sucks as a villain. If you guys like him, that's great. Just because he's played by the same actor who played the Red Wild Force Ranger, Cole Evans, Rick Medina Jr., and seeing him in Samurai as Decker. Now, yeah, if you guys like the Samurai because of that, that's on you. But fuck Decker. Moving on. Number 16, Mora and Morana from Power Rangers SPD. Okay, Morana from SPD. Where do I begin? Where do I put my finger on this girl, on this woman? Ugh, she is creepy. Nothing else. Next, number 15, Metal Alice from Power Rangers Megaforce. On my list of top 20 worst villains in Power Rangers. Ugh, man, where do I begin with Metal Alice? Of all the villains in Megaforce and Super Megaforce, Metal Alice, she's just a terrible female throwaway of Dark Conda, in my opinion. Because, just come to think of it, she just reminds me too much of Dark Conda. But as a female. No offense to me being sexist on that point, but she just fucking sucked as a villain. And I'm so glad by the final episode of Megaforce's first half, I'm so glad the metal robo bitch was gone anyway. Because she was too much mouth, she is so prejudiced toward humans, and rather prefer robots as a better race than the human race. You know, in fact, that's one of the many things that kind of did bother me about Megaforce, is the prejudice with her between what is the better life form of superiority, robots or humans. And I did not like the fact that, to me, this robo woman wants to be like Dark Conda or so and Rancic so bad that she just really just stinks the series up for me. And I mean, yeah, I really like her gothic her gothic woman as a robot aesthetic, but her performance is just terrible. It's just fucking terrible. I don't have anything else to say, but Metal Alice, she's just sorry. She's just a pathetic villain. Moving on. Number 14, Captain Mutiny from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. And I'll tell you exactly why he sucks as a villain, and why I definitely do not like Captain Mutiny. Now, Captain Mutiny now believe it or not, he is, you know, in the Sentai version of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, Captain Mutiny is the main villain of CG Sentai Gingaman, known as Captain Zahab there. But seeing him as a somewhat smaller focal villain of Lost Galaxy for the Lost Galaxy story arc of the last half of the season, he doesn't really seem that important. The only motive that Captain Mutiny ever had was to steal those that are on Terra Venture to be his slaves and to be part of his slave camp. What kind of boring ass premise was that? And if you guys think Captain Mutiny is that impressive, all power to you, but really Captain Mutiny was nothing. Nor was Hecuba. But Barbarax, however, seemed to be the more appealing of the three villains of the Lost Galaxy side of the season, other than Scorpius or Trakena's forces of evil. But Captain Mutiny, not impressive. Don't like his. I just did not like his pirate motif. He's just too clunky to look at. He's not that impressive. He fucking sucks. And he's just boring. He's just a fucking boring villain. No offense. But I say Barbarax, to me, seems to be more appealing than the rest of... to be more appealing than Mutiny or Hecuba, because they just don't seem to have something there for my taste. Number 14. Venjix from Power Rangers RPM. And why he sucks, in my honest opinion, why I do not like Venjix from RPM. And when knowing RPM is one of my most hated seasons of Power Rangers. Now RPM, as far as known right now, still after 6 years since that season, it's still, to them, to the rest of the fandom, one of the best seasons of Power Rangers. Me, my most hated, because I don't like it. And why I don't like Venjix? One of my theories is, how the hell is he all that powerful? How the hell is he absorbing so many different alternate forms? Is he all that great? Well, how the hell am I supposed to know? I don't like Venjix. I never liked it RPM. Though his final form with the with his black armor aesthetic, well, I thought that was pretty cool than the rest of his other forms. And the glowing red eyes, yes, I think that's the more appealing of his his character. I think that's the only reason why I liked the Venjix in the final half of RPM was his final form, his ultimate form to take down the RPM Rangers and all of Corinth. But I don't really like him as a character at all, but just his final form, that's all I can say. At number 13, Lothor from Power Rangers Ninja Storm. Now, many of you know that Lothor is like a male Divatox and one of the worst villains in all of Power Rangers, and why the fuck Lothor is so fucking pathetic. Lothor, I did not even like him from start to finish. From the start, when Ninja Storm first came out 11 years ago, now going on 12 as of 2015, Lothor was supposed to be a threatening situation to all of Blue Bay Harbor, and for the Ninja Storm, Wind and Thunder, and Samurai Rangers. Because let's face it, we've seen the backstory of him from the Samurai's Journey 3-parter, and seeing how he became what he has become and why he is the way he is. But seeing him babysit his two nieces, Capri and Mara, is pointless. Seeing him complain and whine about things is pointless. Of him trying to conquer the world is pointless. Nothing about Lothor is appealing. He's not that appealing of a villain. He's not. At all. He's one of the many reasons why I don't like Ninja Storm that much. Because he's there. Although creating him although Lothor did not exist in Hurricaneager, the Sentai that Ninja Storm was based on, he was only American produced, but this is one of the lame duck American-produced villains of the Disney era and all the Power Rangers I have ever seen. And Lothor, he is not all that great. He's not as impressive as Rancic. He is not that intriguing as Mesogog. He is not as sympathetic or as schizophrenic as Emperor Grum. He is just plain fucking stupid. And that's why even Linkara pointed out that Lothor is a male Divatox. Actually, in fact, number 12 on my list of worst villains in Power Rangers, there is another male Divatox wannabe in the series. And of that, Prince Vrakar from Power Rangers Super Megaforce at number 12. Prince Vrakar. Where do I begin with this punkhead of a villain? Where do I begin? Come on. Where do I start? We know he's the brother of Vrak, but meshing Ghost Ranger and Koragg together, well, I have to admit, is not worth it. But if Super Megaforce was its own season and not being a pickup to where Megaforce left off, we would have been fine with it. But meshing in Go Kyger stuff with Go Sager stuff, well, albeit does not mesh. Just like RPM, meshing what is comedic and humorous of its Sentai and making it dark and grim and Holocaust-like doesn't fit. And that's exactly one of the things I did not like about... Well, I think one of the reasons why I did not like Super Megaforce that much is Prince Vrakar, the lead villain of Super Megaforce. And when I think of Prince Vrakar, he reminds me of Lothor and Divatox thrown together. But except, like Lothor, Prince Vrakar is another male Divatox wannabe. And I really think Vrakar is just utterly pathetic as a lead villain. He whines like a baby too much. He complains. He is always nagging to his cohorts and whatever else. And sorry for me calling the guy a faggot. It's like we got our first openly gay lead villain in Power Rangers. Because the voice actor behind Prince Vrakar, well, I'm not going to say it to make any homoerotic comment and no further homoerotic comments about him within all the Power Rangers fandom and Power Rangers community. But when I think of Prince Vrakar, he just reminds me of Divatox in a gay way. Let's just say that. Or Lothor in a gay way. Because he just listen to his voice just cringes me. Why couldn't they make him sound more intelligent, or a little intelligent like his Go Kyger counterpart? Or whatever. I don't know. But his nasally voice cringes me throughout Super Megaforce. It just cringes me. That's all I can say. Number 11, Tenaya 7, also from Power Rangers RPM. I'm about to explode here about Tenaya 7. I really am about to. Oh God. Tenaya 7. One of my most hated female villains of all the Power Rangers. And why she sucks as a villain is because I don't like her. She is too snobby. She is too introvert. She is just too competulant. She is just too she's just too fucking ridiculous. She's just fucking ridiculous. She's just not that great of a villain to me. She's not interesting. She's not appealing. She is terrible. Now, if you guys like Tenaya 7, that's on you. For those that like RPM. But me, I hate Tenaya 7. I really fucking hate her. And I'm not laughing or smiling about this, but I'm really being dead serious. I hate Tenaya 7. I hate her. I hate her so damn much. I hate her so much that she fucking pisses me off when I see her on RPM. And the actress, like I stated, the actress behind Tenaya 7, Alkaline Kane, she's a terrible actress. And one of the things I did not like about Tenaya is that she ripped off Astronema from Power Rangers in Space with the Ranger villainous dynamic of brother and sister. I really hate that. I really hated what Disney did for their considered final season of the show, which was their final season. And what would have been the final season of all the Power Rangers altogether. And Tenaya, I just don't find her as appealing. I don't find her one of the best female villains of Power Rangers. She is the worst female villain of Power Rangers. I mean, the worst. The worst next to Divatox and Vipra. She is just worse. She's just terrible. One of the most terrible female villains of all Power Rangers. I don't like her performance. I don't like how snobby she is. I don't like how selfish she is. Self-obedient. And self-pretentious. I don't. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate her so damn much. I fucking hate her so much that if I had a female villain from a past season, I would have that female villain kick Tenaya's ass. Any female villain of Power Rangers that can fight, like Elsa or Morgana or Necroli, or Miratrix, or Camille, or Capri, or Trachina at least. But Tenaya 7, she is one of my most hated female villain of all the Power Rangers, next to Vipra and Elsa. And I just really think that she just is one of my most hated female villains, period. You know, this is also kind of on the contrary. What reminds me about her is that she reminds me too much. You know, to me, when I look at Tenaya 7, she is like the Sienna Miller Baroness of Power Rangers RPM. Because it's a coincidence that G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra came out the same year RPM did. And when I think about Tenaya's acting, it reminds me of Sienna Miller's performance of the Baroness in G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra. Because when I think of it, I mean, when I think of Tenaya, I think of Sienna Miller as the Baroness. And also, I just don't like her, I just don't really like her character. Again, I mean, her costume fucking sucks. I mean, there's nothing appealing about her costume. And the visor that she has covering her face because she's blind or whatever. I just think she's just conventionally one of the dumbest, inconceived villains of the opposite gender I really hate. Because she just really makes me fucking sick to my stomach when I look at her. She really does. She fucking does. You know, I just really hate Tenaya so much that she just really boils my blood, really angers me so much every time I look at her. And even the way how she acts, and the way how she talks to the Rangers as a villain, I just don't think she was just all that appealing. And she's just one of my most hated female characters of all the Power Rangers. I'm not saying I hate all the female characters or hate females in general. It's just, there is just certain types of female characters in Power Rangers I like and don't like. Because I have my opinions, I have my reasons to say this. And if you guys don't agree with me about Tenaya, then, well, fuck you. That's all I have to say. I'm so glad I put Tenaya on my list of worst villains of Power Rangers, either male or female, it doesn't matter. But what's a far much more conventionally irrelevant female villain of Power Rangers at number 11 is Elsa from Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Ugh, okay, Elsa, I have to say, she is not my favorite female villain. Never was, never will. And when I look at Elsa, I have some shades of Trachina in a way with the black lipstick and the black suit she has. But Elsa is not as appealing as Trachina, in my opinion. And every time when I see Xandred and Elsa together, it's like Trachina and Villamax all over again in Dino Thunder. But just badly reinstated. You see, this is one of the things I hate about female villains of Power Rangers today. None of the female villains in today's Power Rangers are as compelling or interesting as Trachina. Like Vipra, or Toxica, or Nadira, or Capri and Mara. None of the female villains up to this point of Power Rangers now, from Vipra to Tenaya 7 to Dayu to Princess Levira, is that appealing. And this is one of the reasons why I do not like none of the female villains after Trachina within all of Power Rangers. And Elsa is one of those female villains I definitely despise the most. She's just really one of those vastly imposing, derivative female villains of Power Rangers, and especially of the Disney era. My goodness. This woman wants to be like Trachina so bad, well, except without being like Trachina in a way with the multiple forms or anything, but she is just, ugh. I mean, her costume and her makeup is terrible. She looks like, I ain't gonna say, but I don't know what to say about her. She's just a terrible knockoff. No offense. Can't say much about her. She's just terrible. Number 9, Elgar from Power Rangers Turbo. And why he sucks as a villain. Why is he even around? You know, Elgar in the Turbo movie, he was more intelligent. But when they brought Divatox, Elgar, and Rygar into the series with Porto, although Porto wasn't in the Turbo movie. But seeing Elgar, out of all the villains of Turbo, he is one of my most hated villains. My most hated villain of Turbo. Other than Divatox. I mean, he is one of my most hated. He is... I mean, he's like a terrible knockoff of Rito Revolto, but as the nephew of Divatox. But he just... You know, I don't see why Divatox has to send her only nephew to deal her dirty work to get rid of the Power Rangers. Why couldn't she send Rygar, who hardly do anything in Turbo, but yet stays on her subcrab ship and just watch Elgar do most of the dirty work? This is one of the things I also hated about Turbo. It's because when you see Divatox send Elgar to do most of the work and her dirty deeds, it just makes me fucking sick. Why the hell she has to send her one and only nephew to do all the work? Why? What's so great about Elgar? He's not that appealing. Now, I can see Rygar did most of the work. Because Rygar can do some things quick, but although as small-minded as he can still do some things evil. Actually, in fact, that's one of the main things why Turbo's villains suck most of the job. Well, except General Havoc. It's just, the villains in Turbo is just, ugh. We'll get to who's the number one from this season, mind you, really, when we know who that is, and it's you know who, so. But Elgar, you're not that great of a villain. Fuck off. Next, number 8 of my top 20 worst villains of Power Rangers. Number 8, Gluto and Nadira from Time Force. Although I don't have a photo of Nadira right now, but I do have a photo of Gluto from my flash drive of villains for Power Rangers. But Gluto, nothing much to say about Gluto. He should have been some useful in the season, but what the fuck did they do to him instead? Make him as a lackey to Rancic, aside with Nadira, and that's all I have to say. It's just Gluto, he should have had some potential. He should have had some potential to be a good villain. But instead, they made him as a no-minded, no-name lackey to work for Rancic. In Time Ranger, he was so useful as a leading villain. He was a crime boss. But you're going to let Gluto in the Power Rangers version do absolutely nothing throughout 40 episodes of Time Force. Absolutely nothing. Man. See, this is one of the reasons why I think Gluto is wasted potential, aside with Nadira. Now, speaking of Nadira, due to the fact I have 2 villains at number 9 on my list, well, having 2 villains at one time on this list, is that Nadira, you know, she is wasted potential too. Although she's the daughter of Rancic, but she's wasted potential. She wasn't really all that useful, but being a spoiled, rich girl and daughter of Rancic, the crime boss, lead villain of the season. You know, I don't see what makes Nadira any useful neither. They should, you know, how about we just imagine if we had Time Force without Nadira and Gluto. But Nadira wouldn't be a villain, she would just be the villain's daughter, who doesn't even hardly do anything. Ugh, I don't really know what to say about this, but what the hell. At number 8 on my list of worst villains of Power Rangers, as we get to the top 5 all-time worst of Power Rangers. Who is my number 8? I did my video podcast about her character as a villain in Power Rangers. She fucking sucks as a villain. She is bland. She was the first villain after Trakina of all of those that are female of Power Ranger villains to be one of the most underrated, underwhelming villains of the respective gender to suck at acting. She's like a female Jackie Chan who can't fucking act. Or actually, let's take that back. Actually, she just can't act, period. She fucking sucks. She's not like, I mean, I wish they could have made her a little bit more interesting, like in the in the Sentai counterpart of Lightspeed, and just like, you know, make her more convincing. Instead of giving her some really shitty ass dialogue and a shitty ass character motive, they should have made her more appealing. Instead of making her so lame and crappy, and giving her dialogue that feel like, yeah, you get the point. Because when I think about Vipra, it just makes me sick. Of all the villains in Lightspeed Rescue, Vipra is my most hated. And of all the female villains of Power Rangers, Vipra, next to Divatox, Elsa, and Tenaya 7, and Metal Alice is one of my top 5 most hated female villains of all the Power Rangers. Because it's just, Vipra was total wasted potential. She just fucking sucked in Lightspeed Rescue. And not only that, she looks way stupid driving around in that stupid Vampire car. That was actually Zane's Galactic Rover from Power Rangers in Space. And then when they remodified it for Vipra as his vehicle 2 seasons later after Lost Galaxy and way surpassed in Space, but for Vipra with the Vampire, it's stupid. Then as soon as when Time for Lightspeed came around for the Time Force Lightspeed Rescue crossover, they brought that stupid ass car of hers back and then try to make her even more serious than last season, because they think, you guys can think Vipra did better in the Time Force Lightspeed Rescue crossover, when really, I don't see no effect by it. Other than the white eye effect, the demon eye effect, I don't think she was all that appealing with the white demon eyes. I really don't think so. She was not that appealing in Time for Lightspeed when they brought her back from the dead. Regardless, I just don't find her that appealing when she had the demon eye effect. I just don't. I really don't. So I am so glad I am also, like I did with Tenaya 7, put Vipra on my list of worst villains of Power Rangers. Because she is terrible. She's a fucking terrible villain. And I mean, like I said, she can't act, she's wasted potential, and she could have been a lot more convincing like her Sentai predecessor in terms of villains. Moving on. Number 7. Number 7 on my list of worst villains of Power Rangers. I'm going to go with this villain, because this villain, albeit, is also one of my most hated villains of all the Power Rangers, and I can't seem to put my finger on this one, but this villain, oh my goodness. Where do I begin? Where do I begin with this one? Morticon from Power... Number 6. Furio from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. Now, we know what makes Furio one of the most overlooked villains of Power Rangers, and why he fucking sucks as a villain. It's just, what if they should have thought of using Furio in Power Rangers in Space at least? Instead of throwing him in Lost Galaxy as a poor man's Goldar of a lackey for Scorpius for the first half of the season, they could have at least made Furio some useful instead of being what he already is. Because he could have been some potential to be a good villain, instead of being a stupid lame duck lackey of Scorpius. Nothing else to say. But he was just bland. Also, at number 5. Now we're down to the top 5 worst villains of Power Rangers now. So I'm going to go ahead and spend the last 5 picks of my top 20, but of the top 5 all-time worst villains of Power Rangers. So I'm going to round this up and end my little belated Halloween fest of selections of best and worst villains of Power Rangers had to offer. And I'm going to go ahead. So, at number 5. So actually back to back at number 5 is also Scorpius from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy for worst villains as well. Yes, criticize me for this, but Scorpius, he was a terrible villain. He was boring. He was what is he made of? What purpose did he had other than the Quasar Sabers to be stolen and Lights for Orion and taking over Terra Venture? There was nothing about Scorpius I actually liked, really. Nothing about him. I mean, other than being the father of Trakina and all, but Scorpius, he was not that appealing as a villain. I mean, although it just didn't work to see him being actually the main villain of Lost Galaxy when really we have two other villain factions to deal with. Trakina's faction of villains and Captain Mutiny's faction of villains. So Scorpius, of the three villain factions of Lost Galaxy, Scorpius was the most boring. With Furio and Trecheron involved, it really was the most boring faction. Although the first half of Lost Galaxy is great, and especially with him being the onslaught target of the Magna Defender because he destroyed the Magna Defender's home planet and killed the sun, but I didn't think Scorpius was all that appealing. And also, one of the things I also hate about Scorpius, well, although despite him being a father figure to Trakina, and despite the fact he is her father, is that he was too much of a dick of a father and a warlord to take over Terra Venture and destroy the Power Rangers, and overprotecting Trakina until she decided to make her own, decision and destiny as to if she, what her character was like. But he was no way in the world all that great of a villain. In fact, I don't even think he was all that compelling. Now, Rancic and Nadira in Time Force, that was compelling. Trakina and Scorpius, father and daughter. Now, there was a problem with that. Now, I liked that their kinship as father and daughter in the beginning when Lost Galaxy aired 15 years ago. 15 years later, I don't care about it anymore. I just came to grow on me and realized that Scorpius was boring. And realized how boring he is of a villain and a father who is the princess turned queen, ass-kicking queen heir of the throne of his legacy of evil, and just like, what else am I going to say about him? But other than being a boring-ass villain with a boring-ass motive, whatever. But I'm glad Scorpius died, Trakina took charge, and we'll never see Scorpius within Power Rangers ever again. Number 4, Master Xandred from Power Rangers, Samurai, and Super Samurai. Like the RPM villains, Samurai's villains just suck to me. Every single villain from Samurai, Master Xandred, Dayu, Decker, Octoroon, and Raider. None of the villains in Samurai were that appealing. Now, Master Xandred, this guy wants to be like Lord Zed so bad. He wants to be like him so bad that he wants to take down all of the Earth and flood the Sansu River with wants to flood the Earth with the Sansu River. This is one of the reasons why I also hate about Power Rangers Samurai, is the motive of the villains. Actually, in terms of that, Nilox, actually. Because you don't prefer the Nilox as villains, you just call them by Nilox. And one of the things I hate about Samurai is the villains. And if you think the Rangers sucked, look at the villains. They're terrible. They're over chatty. And this is one of the reasons why the Neo Saban era sucks now. Is because their villains are not well played out. They're just not worth looking at. Not worth to appeal to. Master Xandred's design is just oh god. He is terrible. I hate Master Xandred. I hate his voice. He just sounds worse than Thrax from Operation Overdrive with his overgrowly demonic voice. And every time when I hear that voice, it cringes me. Much worse than Thrax's growly like a cliche cartoon voice. And that just really makes me sick. And then also, however, I did like the fact in the episode The Master's Return of Super Samurai, pretty much the only episode of Samurai I liked of a few, that Master Xandred actually kicked the Red Ranger's ass and torn Jaden into bits and weakened his body a little. But in the final episode of Super Samurai, Samurai Forever, and all the Power Ranger Samurai, his death at the end of Samurai and Super Samurai fucking sucked. The Rangers had to sacrifice their Samurai Megazord to destroy him. And so that way the Nihilox would be no more. That was a terrible villain death. And it wasn't resolved very well. Now if you guys don't think so, then tell me your opinion on how Master Xandred's death was and why he just, well, in your own words and your opinions. And in biased perspective. But Xandred, he's a terrible villain. He fucking sucks. He's terrible. One of the worst villains I have ever seen in Power Rangers, and one of the many reasons why I do not like none of Samurai's villains, and why he fucking just sucks, period. I just don't have anything else to say. No other words to describe him. Number 3 of worst villains of Power Rangers, of the top 20 worst. Jindrax and Toxica from Power Rangers Wild Force. And again, this is my opinion. If I think Jindrax and Toxica are terrible, they're terrible. Just don't get butthurt or get criticized or get fidgety or butthurt about my criticism of why I hate those villains and why they're not appealing to me. Jindrax and Toxica, believe it or not, I don't think they were really even worth it to be villains in Power Rangers. And what purpose do they have other than being orgs to serve Master Org when really they tend to screw up? They're like the idiotic duo interpretation of Rita and Zed if they were idiotic and didn't really do much of anything to do evil to serve Master Org. But I don't really like Jindrax and Toxica. I really don't. So, nothing else to say about those two. And here we are, everyone. My all-time number 1 worst Power Rangers villain of all time. One of the worst. And why this villain feels to be the most hated, but yet gets loved at times, but still is one of the most hated because his or hers consistent motive of villainy. This villain of Power Rangers, that is the worst. The worst. That is definitely one of the most derivative, one of the most bumbling, one of the most dumbest, one of the most, almost everything I can say about this villain, but it's going to surprise you. I mean, if you like this villain, all power to you. But this villain is definitely my number 1 most hated. And why this villain fucking sucks. And I can't even, I'm tired of saying fucking sucks every time I say what villains I think, in my opinion, is terrible Power Rangers. I've been saying it for almost an hour and a half now, talking about these villains and why they are terrible. Well, some of the villains that are terrible aside from those that are great in my opinion. And of that, everyone, your number 1 worst villain of Power Rangers. Oh boy, my hands are trembling for this now. I can't resist. And here it is. Number 1, Divatox from Power Rangers Turbo. At number 1 for worst villain of Power Rangers. Oh man. Oh god. I mean, oh man. Here we go. Here we go. Number 1. You know, when I first saw Turbo Power Rangers movie, Divatox gave me a boner because of the cleavage of evil she had. When I seen her on the show, despite the change of actress when Hilary Shepard couldn't do the first half of the season because of her pregnancy, when they gave the part to Carol Hoyt in replacement following Hilary Shepard's pregnancy, Divatox wasn't really all that appealing to begin with. Even throughout the end of Turbo, and then, well, you know, the gathering of the United Alliance of Evil. throughout in space. And, you know, Divatox was such a very incompetent female villain of Power Rangers. Well, Hilary Shepard's version may be the most likable, but I'm not sure about Carol Hoyt's version from the first half of Turbo, and even following the cast change of Tommy's team to TJ's team. But it's just stupid, you know, see her do stupid things. Her decisions and her plots to, you know, take over the world is stupid. Her motive of taking over the world is stupid. Her plan to destroy the Power Rangers was stupid. It's just embarrassing to see this woman who is a space pirate, a pirate conqueror, to destroy the Power Rangers. I mean, and make everyone to believe that. I mean, whenever you hear her say she destroyed the Power Rangers, it makes everyone laugh at her. And, you know, well, actually laugh at her in some such shame. Because how the hell in the world? I mean, I just watched Chasing the Space and watched Power Rangers Turbo a couple days ago on Netflix. And when I got to Chasing the Space Part 2, and when I seen her send her entire squadron of Piranhatrons to the power chamber and blow up the power chamber with the Rangers in it, how the hell did she even destroy the Power Rangers? How was that even possible? I mean, aside from the bombs to be placed over the insides of the power chamber with the Piranhatrons storming in there and destroying everything, what the fuck was that all about? Really? And how the hell, I mean, none of her plans throughout Turbo was worth anything. Nothing. And, just, you know, the first half of Turbo, she had to set bombs everywhere. Each episode after episode after episode and after episode. Bombs, bombs, bombs. What kind of space pirate would place bombs on every single every episode of Turbo's first half and just like so that way the Rangers can defuse her bombs in time? Who the hell is the Mad Bomber? Now, I can see if Koragg was a Mad Bomber. That would have been more potential and really worth telling a story. Koragg should have been the Mad Bomber of Divatox's crew, not Divatox herself. That just makes no fucking sense. It just dawned on me. Rewatching Turbo, watching most of the first half of Carol Hoyt as Divatox again. It's stupid to see her plant bombs over Angel Grove, so that way the Rangers can, defuse the bombs before they detonate on time. Well, except in a few episodes, the bomb would just blow up, and then what the hell is that all about? So this is why Turbo is one of the most hated seasons of Power Rangers. Well, although personally, I personally think it's one of the most crappiest of all the Power Rangers, and why it's just stupid and cliche and just a terrible parody of what made Power Rangers so great. And the villains of the first 4 years so great. But it's just stupid just to see her, Divatox is a bomb planner and then all of a sudden a world conqueror. What the fuck is this all about? Well, her plan of sending General Havoc to steal the Turbo Megazord worked, but her plan in the final 2 episodes, Chasing the Space, that led to the season that would have been the end of all Power Rangers, and then sending her entire massive horde of Piranhatrons, as idiotic and bumbling and retarded they were, and just blowing up the power chamber. And after that, we no longer have the power chamber in Power Rangers. But I have to say, Divatox is definitely one of the worst villains of Power Rangers, and one of the dumbest female villains we have ever had. Although I like Hilary Shepard's Divatox, but her character altogether is just man, I just don't know how to put it. Just shivers me too much. She just cringes me. Her plans just seems too incoherent. It feels like this is why nobody wants to listen to her, because she is just fucking stupid. She's so fucking stupid every time. Okay, I'm sorry for me getting worked up about her and other female villains of Power Rangers that I mentioned that are the worst on my list, but she is one of the dumbest. She's even a terrible knockoff of Rita if she was a diva. As much as I've heard Rita say, "I got a headache," so much, but Divatox, I'm sorry, but You whine like a baby so much for a woman your age who is a world pirate, some pirate conqueror, and like, my God, you are terrible. And to think Prince Vrakar and Lothor were bad, you were the first to transcend a couple of male villains that would be a wannabe of you. And why is that? Because you're a terrible villain. And this is why Linkara hates you. Because you just bug him, and you bug some people that just can't stand you at all, period. Although I liked the Divatox in the Turbo movie, but in the show, she was just, oh my God, this is terrible. I thought the villains were portrayed better in the Turbo movie, although Turbo Power Rangers movie is terrible and all, but when you see them in the show, it's like the Three Stooges of Evil. You got Divatox as Mo, you got Koragg as Harry, or what was it? And Elgar as Curly. Yes. You got Divatox, Koragg, and Elgar as the Three Stooges of Evil. Yeah, without Porto. Porto doesn't count. He's just not really worth anything. But Turbo does have the worst villains of all the Power Rangers. And yes, Turbo is still one of the worst seasons. Not all that great. Though the second half of Turbo with TJ's team was better. But when Tommy and his team was there, Turbo Power Rangers was about to, well, die. Because, well... But still, I am also so glad Divatox is at #1 on my worst Power Rangers villains list. I'm so glad I did. Because I just had to get this off my chest. But although every time I see Divatox's, you know, I hate to say the T word, but a different word to refer to it, boobs. When I see her boobs in the movie, it gives me a diva erection. I'm ashamed to say that, but I had to say it. I had to speak my piece. So, guys, there you have it. For, you know, after Halloween night, I had to come across to say who are the worst and best of Power Rangers in terms of villains. And I hope you guys had a great Halloween. And actually, this was something I needed to do for Halloween, for a belated Halloween, just to get off my chest. So, although podcast 112 is split into 2 parts, but unfortunately, the worst of villains of Power Rangers is podcast episode 133 of my video podcasts of Power Rangers and whatever. And I'm glad I spent 2 long hours of the day after Halloween to do this podcast and round up what are my top best, what are my top worst of Power Rangers. Now we know for the next 20 years of Power Rangers after Super Megaforce and whatever Power Rangers will continue to go on after that for many years to come for the next 20 years. If we have any villains that will be just as best or worse as the villains we had for the first 20, we'll see about that. So anyway, this concludes my very, very long podcast of evil for Halloween of my top 20 best and one of my top 20 worst villains of Power Rangers. Even though it was originally scheduled, but due to my hiatus and such, my fall hiatus and such, I had to do less videos about Power Rangers and such, and I had to do something else for a change, and that's why I came back to do this podcast. You know, even though these 2 videos was chronologically out of order, sorry for that. My apologies. I'll try to get my channel back up and running with more content soon and such, and better content, and see where I can go with that for the future of my channel. So anyway, I would like to thank all of those that are fans of the villains of Power Rangers for enjoying me tonight and tomorrow and days beyond following this video, even though Halloween has already been over and I should have did this video on Halloween, but I decided I was tired, I was exhausted, I had too many videos to put up on my schedule and videos to edit and put out on my channel for anyone to watch. So there you go. So anyway, this is Anthony Mars Jr. on PRLostGalaxy2014, logging off, and I'll see you guys right back here next time. be sure to subscribe, comment, and so forth, and check out also check out my Morphin Megaverse Power Rangers Facebook group, because I also have villain IDs for those that want to, role play as Power Ranger villains along with me, as well as Rangers with those that are also Rangers in my group as well. So, thanks for watching and listening. In my discussion here of those that are evil on Terra Ventures Conference Hall, or anywhere in any villain factions' lair or ship and base, it's closing up shop. So therefore, my discussion here on Terra Ventures Conference Hall is now over.